Now we're going to look at points to consider when planning a text. We saw that the writing process looks something like this. How long and how much detail you spend on each stage depends on the type and length of text you're writing. For short, simple texts, a lot of people would go through the planning stage subconsciously. But for functional skills and GCSE English, it's important that students plan so that their texts are well structured. So, what are the first steps? Well, first, it's about getting students to engage with the topic of the text. This you can do with a range of activities. For example, you could use images to initiate discussion, a caption game, true-false questions, or an attitude survey, whatever you can think of to get the students to engage with the topic of the text. Next, we need to help students to understand the scenario of the task. They have to imagine themselves in that role. So, for example, with this task, they would have to play the role of a local resident. This can be done with a discussion. For example, for this task, you could ask the following questions. Students also need to consider their target audience and the genre and purpose of the text at this stage. And now we come on to planning. Students quite often struggle with generating ideas. However, if they've had enough time in the previous stage to discuss the topic, they should be able to do a brainstorm now. Then they need to merge any duplicated ideas. Next, they should put their ideas into groups and identify the common theme or topic of each group. And each one of these groups will become a paragraph. They should then put the groups into a logical order. Teachers can use graphic organisers to help students with their planning. So here are some examples of different graphic organisers, just depending on what you're doing and what kind of text the students have to plan for. So to recap, planning is important and we need to teach it. Before we start planning, there are a couple of important steps. First, students consider and discuss their experiences of the topic. Then they consider the scenario and what role they're playing in it, as well as the genre, audience and purpose of the text. And finally, we move on to planning, and graphic organisers can be useful for this.